when our forefathers came, right? When my father came, and my grandfather came, right? With a boat, not a plane, right? They came and they built institutions, right? With, the little money that they had, right?
That was their priority at that
That was
time.
their priority.
Where are we going to pray? Where are we going to get halal food from?
Right?
Later, where are we going to bury our deceased?
Exactly.
And how are we going to make Hajj and Umrah and go Bangladesh?
Absolutely. That was the priority, meaning they wanted to preserve the Islamic Aqidah, identity, right? I mean, we have much more money now. We have much more kind of materialistically more than before.
And we're more educated.
More educated.
The secular
I ask myself, why haven't we done, enough or as close to what they have done, right? There's obviously the challenges, internal and external challenges.
They didn't have 9/11, 7/7 on the border.
They didn't have, exactly. They didn't have those kind of things. Yes, but even then they had problem, racism, Islamophobia, racism.
For sure, 100%.
Right? They persevered, right? And they understood the priorities. They understood that we need to have maktabs, we need to have massages, we have to have halal slaughter, we have to have all those kind of things. That's how we preserve our identity. They understood that we need to get organized as a community.
Yes.
Yeah. So they developed organizations, they developed committees and local organizations, national organizations, right? So if we're united, if we're working together, we are able to preserve the identity. So our priority should be preserving the Muslim identity. I think number 2, which is a priority, is giving da'wah to non-Muslims. I think many Muslims don't understand this obligation.
How big of an obligation is it?
It's a massive obligation. It's an obligation.
Is it individual or collective one?
It's individual and collective.
Is it not a case of so long as some brothers are doing and some jama'ahs are doing it, we're good?
So that depends on level of engagement, right?
Okay.
So as Muslims, wherever we are, we have to perform our duties, because the Prophet said, "Ballighu anni walau ayah." Convey from me even if it's a verse. So, give. You don't have to be a scholar to give da'wah, right? Anyone is able to give da'wah. You can give da'wah to a non-Muslim, give da'wah to Muslims also, right? But yes, there should be groups of people who get organized, right? Who fulfill that systematic way of giving da'wah, definitely, right? But it's an obligation. In fact, some scholars would say, and still say, that if you're living in a predominantly non-Muslim country
without doing that,
then it's problematic. I'm not going to use other terminologies, but it's problematic, right? So I think people, and many Muslims, unfortunately, because we're firefighting, and as a community, unfortunately, 9/11 and 7/7, other the war on terror, ISIS and so on and so forth. We're always firefighting, unfortunately, right? And sometimes we can be hard on ourselves. But we're still a young community, right, in the UK, essentially, right?
67
years. It's still young, right? So sometimes we have to be hard on ourselves, definitely, right? But we have to be balanced in our criticism of ourselves, right? But there's so much more that we need to do we are not doing. We are not getting organized, unfortunately, right? We're not getting organized. There are many organizations that we have, those organizations, the kind of umbrella national organizations, are not talking to each other. So one of my kind of, what I said to myself, right, is that whether it be the BBSI, right, the MCB and others, right, these organizations, they need to speak to each other. They need to work together. They may not agree on everything, but they need to work for the betterment of the community, and they need to involve other members of the community, right? Despite our differences, we have to understand, and this is really a message to Imam and the scholars. We have to understand that talking about these aqidah issues online, fiqh issues, right, that you will never be able to unite the ummah. If people like, and great luminaries like Ibn Taymiyyah, Imam al-Ghazali, right, these were luminaries, right, of our ummah, giants, right? They were not able to unite the ummah on those issues. Who are we? Who are you, right? So we have to understand our priorities. Our priorities, right, as long as a person is Muslim, as long as a person has the right aqidah, on the minor issues, or on fiqh or aqidah, or on other aspects, right, live and let live.
How would your standard Muslim laity from the awam give dawah? In case someone's watching this thinking, how the hell do I give dawah?
Dawah, if you're working in a company, for example, you be the best Muslim employee that you can be, right? Smile. Small things can lead to big changes, right? Give a book, give the Quran to your colleagues, right? Speak about in a gentle way with hikmah, wisdom, right? But if you're in a situation for 10, 20 years and your non-Muslim colleague doesn't know anything about Islam, then you will be accountable on the Day of Judgment, because the non-Muslim, right,
will complain about
you
on the Day of Judgment.
So that's how our obligation dawah is. What's been happening is that we're 4 million Muslims in the UK.
Yeah, 4 million make up 6%.
Right, 4 million Muslims. Right? Majority, unfortunately, are not aware in the right level of the deen. Majority of people are not praying, for example, right?
Sure.
So we're giving dawah to ourselves, right? So my time is spent, majority of my time is spent not giving dawah to non-Muslim, which it should be, but majority of the time is teaching Muslims and giving dawah to Muslims, right? In fact, majority of our time, we should be at a stage where majority of our time
is giving dawah to
non-Muslims, right? And if we live as Muslims, we all have problems and shortcomings, and we all sin. Yeah, no one, and you don't need to be a saint, right? You don't need to be a wali or saint, right, to give dawah. You'll make mistakes, right? But you can give dawah to non-Muslims, right? You can give dawah to others, but not giving dawah, not being aware, not propagating Islam, that's a problem. However you can, you write a blog, write an article, do a TikTok, right now. Stay within your lane, right? There are some brothers and sisters, right? You see on TikTok, they start giving fatwas and speaking about things that they have no qualification in, right? Stay in your lane, right? Right? You're a journalist.
But flourish in your lane.
Yeah, exactly. You're a journalist, mashallah. You're very educated in journalism. Islamic knowledge, the acquisition of it, democratic. Men and women can acquire knowledge and become scholars or learned, right? But this is your field, journalism, right? Be the best in your field, right? And that's how you give dawah. Be the best in your field, talk to other journalists and give dawah. I know it's not easy to give dawah to journalists, right?
No, we have our own different ways. Sometimes a part of the dawah is defending the deen as well.
Exactly. No, absolutely.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that dawah is not just going out to Hyde Park and having a stall. That's part of it. Dawah is not just making a video. There's so, as you said, defending your deen.
But amal, defending, propagating, advice. It takes different shapes and different forms.
Exactly.